Hello, and welcome to the Coachman. For today's story, we're going to be sticking right here in the good old US of A. And we're going to be reading from a gentleman who I really have enjoyed a lot of his story, which is Charles M. Skinner. And he has a really cool story that really, I think, kind of plays off of the idea of generosity, what it means and all that. So, but the quick question before I have, do you know what a baker's dozen is? If you don't, honestly, I highly sit back, try to figure it out because it's actually pretty interesting. But yeah, the story is actually called The Baker's Dozen. Bas Volkert Jan Petersen van Amsterdam, one long name, kept a bake shop in Albany and lives in history as the man who invented New Year's cakes and made gingerbread babies in the likeness of his own fat offspring. That's amazing. Called his own kids fat. Good churchman though he was, the bane of his life was a fear of being bewitched, and perhaps it was to keep out evil spirits who might one last effort to gain the mastery over him. He turned the customary leaf with the incoming year, that he had primed himself with an extra glass of spirits on the last day of 1654, exactly 430 years ago. That's a really long time. That must be wicked. I would love to see what it looks like in 1654. His sales had been brisk, and as he sat in his little shop, meditating comfortably on the gains he would make when his harmless rivals, the Knickerbakers, or the bakers of marbles, sent for their usual supply of olykoeks and mince pies on the morrow. If you don't know what morrow is, just put a 2 in front of it, and you'll get it. See, tomorrow? Yeah, that's what they used to say in the old days. So it's just like instead of morrow, it's tomorrow. He was startled by a sharp rap, and an ugly old woman entered. "Give me a dozen New Year's cookies," she cried in a shrill. "Well then, you needn't break so loud. I ain't deaf then." That is a way. He almost sounds like, honestly, it's weird. I know for a fact that this guy is either Dutch or maybe Dutch, Belgian, or German, because that's how Germans really bite into W's, and it's not well, it's well. So, but it's awesome because it also, when I read that, it sounded like my man was Jamaican, but he's probably not because he just wouldn't be a baker. He'd be like a baker and 10 other things. But anyway, "A dozen," she screamed. "Give me a dozen. Here are only 12. Well then, 12 is a dozen. One more. I want a dozen. Well then, if you want another, go to the devil and get it." Did the hag take him at his word? No. She left the shop, and from that time it seemed as if poor Volkert was bewitched. Indeed, for his cakes were stolen, his bread was so light that it went up the chimney, when it was not so heavy that it fell through the oven. Invisible hands plucked bricks from the same oven and pelted him until it was blue. That is nuts, getting pelted with bricks. Think about it, a brick until you're blue. If it doesn't crack your head, that means that somebody keeps hitting you. His wife became deaf, his children went unkept, and his trade went elsewhere. So basically, my man lost everything. You know what I mean? His wife can't hear him. His food never stays with him. His kids are just getting, unkept basically means that his kids are just getting all the way messed up. And basically, nobody wants, his trade, basically as a baker, it's done. So he lost everything. Thrice, the old woman reappeared, and each time was sent anew to the devil. But at last, in despair, the baker called on St. Nicholas to come and advise him. His call was answered with startling quickness, for almost while he was making it, the venerable patron of Dutch feast stood before him. The good soul advised the trembling man to be more generous in his dealings with his fellows, and after a lecture on charity he vanished, when lo, the old woman was there in his place. I don't know about y'all. Think about it. Somebody comes into your home, yeah, and says, "Yo, give me that TV." And you're like, "No." They're like, "Give me the TV." You're like, "No." give me the TV, like demanding your TV, yeah? And then they just don't stop. They keep coming back, yeah? And then, like, let's say every time that they take your TV, like every time they leave, they pick up like a pillow, or they pick up like, your kid's like toy, or they walk out with your remote control. This lady keeps coming back. I'm sorry. I'm putting a foot, you know what I mean, up her yaya, because it ain't going to happen, but let's see what he does. She repeated her demand for one more cake, and Wolkirk, Jan Peterson, etc. If you don't etc., it means extra. The rest of his name. Gave it, whereupon she explained, the spell is broken, and from this time a dozen is 13. Taking from the counter a gingerbread effigy of St. Nicholas, she made the astonished Dutchman lay his hand upon it and swear to give more liberal measure in the future. So, until 13 new states arose from the ruins of the colonies, when the shrewd Yankees restored the original measure, 13 made a baker's dozen. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week, and everything, and no breaks come flying. Your spouse keeps their hearing, and your kids are all nice and easy. Because until next time, take care.